Donald goes doolally. Donald Trump goes berserk. He wipes out trillions on the stock markets of the world. Then he tells his friends he's going to U-turn, and they all make hundreds of billions on the stock market. The American ruling elite is in a state of meltdown as trade war has been declared by their commander-in-chief. He reversed everything he'd said that caused all the damage except for China, where he doubled down, tripled, quadrupled, quintupled, sextupled the trade war, the tariffs against China. Is it madness, or is there method in the madness? He certainly seems to know nothing at all about China, or about Chinese culture, or about Chinese history. If there's anybody in the world you don't try publicly to humiliate and to order around, it's surely the leadership and the people of the People's Republic of China. I thought any schoolboy knoweth that, but Donald Trump and Marco Rubio and the other ghouls that he has surrounding him making policy on the hoof sometimes on foreign and domestic policies. The reality is the American economy simply cannot survive without Chinese goods. Now, I'm not talking about these idiot brands selling at $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a handbag which actually cost something like $1,000. The markup is a symptom of late 21st century capitalism, where any idiot can be found to pay through the nose for something worth hundreds of times less. But the iPhone, the computer, the vital electronic sinews of American society cannot be made in the United States. Apple's chief executive just made that clear. They literally cannot be made in the United States. China's preeminence on things like refining of rare earth materials, its economic manufacturing superpower status cannot be replicated by this American economy that has shrunk away almost to nothing. Apart from anything else, even tourism is collapsing in the United States. Nobody wants to go there. They're afraid they're going to be arrested on the streets for something they might have tweeted about another country some years before. The American economy, bereft of tourism, incapable of manufacturing on the scale and at the prices that China can do, doesn't hold all the cards at all, Donald. And even the cards are made in China. So is Donald Trump the final nail in the empire's coffin? You've come to the right place to have it out with Galloway. Lee Camp is a good friend of mine, a political comedian and commentator, and host of the unmissable Unredacted Tonight, former host of Redacted Tonight. I'll get to the change of nomenclature, Lee, but welcome to the show. It's been quite a show in Washington this last week or 10 days. What do you make of it all?
Oh man, it is a pleasure to be at the front row seats of the circus, of the clown show we've got going here. And, talking about the tariffs and, however they ultimately come down, most of the cost will be passed on to the American people. Most of it will be Americans who end up paying these extra costs, even as most Americans struggle, even as most of the wealth is sucked up to the top few parasites in our society. Average Americans will no doubt end up paying for this. But an aspect of this that I feel like is barely being talked about is why would Donald Trump do something that is going to harm Americans so extremely, possibly cause recession, if not depression, when you know he wants the love, he wants the adoration, he wants to be able to say he has the best economy ever and all that stuff. Why is he really doing this? And at the heart of it is the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency, which is barely being talked about. One of Trump's chief economic advisors, Stephen Moran, did write a paper about it and give a speech about it just a few days ago, where he made it clear, although he put in all the standard Trump propaganda, but he made it clear that this tariff battle that Trump is creating, global tariff battle, but really centered on China, has to do with the de-dollarization of the world, the fact that the U.S. is a waning, a decomposing empire, a fetid shell of itself. And he is trying to basically rewrite the geopolitical economic rules. He is trying to rewrite the economy that, impacts everyone around the world. But the U.S. doesn't have a lot of leverage to be able to force that anymore. The U.S. can't just say to the world, hey, you're going to go by our rules any longer. And so he thinks that by creating this massive tariff war, he can get a lot of countries around the world to come fawning, come be licking his shoes and say, what can we do to have you to be back in the good graces of the United States? And his answer is going to be basically, you have to pay us to have the dollar be the global reserve currency. And he's got a list of ways that they can pay their fealty to the United States to allow us to be the global reserve currency. But in fact, being the global reserve currency, the petrodollar, is a huge privilege to the United States. It allows the United States to print almost all the money we want, which most countries cannot. And so he's trying to fight off de-dollarization with this unhinged trade war that it seems like it will absolutely cause a recession, if not a depression. And as you said, China is holding all the cards in this.
Yeah, holding all the cards, and the cards are made in China in any case. The last time you and I were together was in China. It was in you might say, the lull before the storm. But the storm is blowing now, and the Chinese people have taken to TikTok and unmasked the madness of late 21st century capitalism, haven't they? I just watched a video where someone deconstructed a handbag I'd never heard of, for which some fool normally pays $38,000 for a handbag, never mind what's in it. And the actual cost of the bag was some $1,000 or $1,200. That's quite a markup. It's unmasking all these luxury brands as having been made in China by Chinese workers all along.
Yeah, that's a great point. And another good example is how the U.S. is trying to keep all these amazing Chinese EVs, electric vehicles, out of our country, putting up walls to stop them from getting into our country, because the American people will see these electronic cars and go, oh my God, these are better than Tesla. They're better than what we have here. They're cheaper by a lot. There's even a $1,200 electric vehicle in China. You could get a small $1,200 electric car in China. But of course, these things are not allowed in the United States because the U.S. people, the American people, can't learn about this stuff or will realize what a garbage economy we have, what a garbage government we have. So the only option left to the United States and to Donald Trump is to try and wall it all off. They proposed a bill recently to make it illegal to download DeepSeek, the new Chinese AI that is better than OpenAI, ChatGPT. Made it illegal and up to like 10 years in prison if you download Chinese AI. So the goal is really the tactic really is just we'll try and make it illegal for the American people to understand how good things could be if we weren't under our own, our fascist government that we have here.
DeepSeek is my new best friend, actually. I commend it to everyone. It doesn't just go deeper in seeking out the facts than all alternatives that I have seen, but it understands people like you and me, Lee, in a way which the propagandized Western AI systems have been programmed not to. But that's a topic for another day. Is all this an alternative to actual war, or is it a preparation for paving of the way towards a real war between Russia, between China and the United States? In a way, that's what I'm most interested in. I don't really care if people can't get their handbags, or even if they can't get their Apple iPhones. But I do care if the rockets are going to start flying.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the initial attempts, the early attempts of the U.S. to maintain hegemony, to maintain a global stranglehold and continue to milk the rest of the world, to mix my metaphors. And it basically, this could be the beginning of the warm up towards war if the U.S. is not able to make other countries fall to their will when it comes to the global reserve currency and other things that the United States wants to achieve. But to maintain hegemony, this is a dying empire. It is a waning, late-stage capitalist crap show, and it's like a cornered tiger in that the more it gets cornered, the angrier it gets. And I certainly hope that it would never get to war. I think the U.S. knows, at least deep down, that there's no winning there. A nuclear war between any of the top superpowers would destroy the planet Earth. It would give us a nuclear winter where we couldn't grow crops for the people who actually survived. So I think maybe there are some people in the U.S. government that understand that is a losing game. But I do know that the U.S. is trying multiple things to basically, stop China's growth, stop de-dollarization, stop the growth of BRICS. And some of them are to try and balkanize countries like Russia. You try and pick off former allies like Ukraine from Russia. And they're trying to do the same thing with China and Taiwan. And I don't think China's going to fall for the bait. So far, it does not seem that they are. But I think these are the early stages of the U.S. getting worse and worse in terms of their treatment of other countries.
The Financial Times, just yesterday, I think, said that Europe is going to have to choose between America and China. They never explained why Europe couldn't just choose Europe instead. The allies are beginning to revolt. I was going to say they're revolting, but that is axiomatic. But they are beginning to revolt. The big gas companies are floating again in Europe. The possibility of reopening the pipelines for cheap Russian gas, hitherto reliable for decades, and as cheap as you can get it, as cheap as chips, as we say here. And Spain has just concluded a very comprehensive package of economic and financial relationships with China. It seems that the Europeans, if forced to choose, are going to choose the place where the sun is rising rather than where it's setting. Is that how it looks from the US?
Well, I certainly agree with Professor Jeffrey Sachs when he came and spoke to the EU, and he said the EU needs to choose, and Britain as well, but the EU needs to choose an EU policy, needs to come up with a policy that is their own. That is where their future lies. It is not in being vassal states to the United States, as we've seen recently, with just bending over to anything the United States wants in terms of war, proxy war in Ukraine, in terms of Israel. In so many ways, Europe has just fallen at the feet of the United States. And what has it done for Europe? How is that where the future, a positive future, a sustainable future, a future that is peace and happiness? How is that? How do you get there from being vassals to an absolutely bloodthirsty, unhinged American empire. That is not the path to follow. And I think Jeffrey Sachs is absolutely right that the EU needs to come up with some EU policy rather than just falling at the feet of this bloated orange monster here. And, I think we're starting to see a little bit of that. It's not enough. Spain's been pretty great on many of these things. But I know France has made some moves towards actually trying to stop this genocide in Gaza here and there, little light touches here and there. But it needs to be much larger than that.
Now, you were unredacted, you're now redacted, or you were redacted, you're now unredacted. Explain all that and tell us where we can find your excellent work, Lee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Galloway. I hosted and wrote the show Redacted Tonight for RT America for 8 years, where I did something that is unheard of on American television, which is to have a weekly comedy news show that was completely swinging for the fences, not held down by corporate sponsors or anything else. I actually was able to speak the truth, and I think that's why people love the show. It was shut down after 8 years, 3 years ago, by U.S. sanctions. I have now recreated it, or a version of it, and it is completely independent. It's just me doing it, writing, hosting, but people will notice that the voice is the same, the anger is the same, the ire is the same, and the facts are the same, and people can find that at leecamp.com/unredacted, or on my Linktree, linktree.com/unredacted. It comes out, /leecamp. It comes out every Thursday. And, we just want to keep holding the ruling elite, the savages and parasites. We want to keep holding them accountable.
Well, nobody does it better than you, and I'll be there. Lee Camp, thanks for joining us on Have It Out with Galloway. Let's go to the video wall, get some reaction to that and to the issue in general. Dr. Zakaria Abbas is in India, in Bangalore. How is India reacting to the tariff war, Doctor?
Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me in your prestigious show, sir. I am someone who follows you very closely. The whole situation reminds me of a proverb. The one who builds walls around his market will soon see the world trading through other gates. This reflects how protectionism, which initially felt like a defense, eventually leads to decline and isolation because the world moves on by adapting. There's definitely, India is in shock. To be honest, the ruling government literally prayed for Trump's victory. But when Donald Trump came into power, starting from the oath ceremony, our prime minister was not invited. And the first country to be slapped tariffs was India. I think the biggest, India has been hit in three major places, which is the medium-sized industry, textiles, leathers and engineering products, and also the aluminum and steel industry. But India has responded by clearly saying that they do not accept unilateralism. And they have boosted self-reliance, which is called Atmanirbhar. And also we have focused on diversifying exports, depending on China, EU and ASEAN countries. I would say that this is not a knockdown, but a big wake-up call for India, where we have explored our options. Because what US has been doing is completely unacceptable. They have proved that they cannot be anyone's friend. When we thought that US is a friend to all of us, but I think the whole world is waking up. The entire global trading alliance is changing, and time will tell. I cannot predict if US is going to decline, but this is definitely going to be a big hit to the US market.
What do you think lies behind this? Because, as you say, Prime Minister Modi was one of Donald Trump's greatest supporters, even in his wilderness years. He never hid the fact that he was praying, literally, as you say, for a Trump victory. Why is Trump and the US behaving as it is towards India?
I think this is nothing but bullying. US has been doing this for decades. The only difference is the cat has bit the countries. Countries like European Union and other allies, the so-called allies of America, who were hands in gloves with the United States, have now realized when the cat has bit them, correct? So India being a very a strategic partner of US, they have showed us that we are just like any other country. And not just us, the closest allies of America are today exploring the options. It is something highly condemnable, but the US economy is going to be big hit because there's going to be major economic blowback with tariffs. The consumer prices are going to go high, and the entire supply chain disruption is going to take place. But the global trade realignment, when US shows hostility through tariffs, countries are going to explore new partnerships. Like we have countries like China, India, and European Union coming together, which will eventually lead to the de-dollarization. This will certainly lead to domestic instability of US. Of course, like everyone knows, there's going to be loss of jobs. The American farmers, car makers, the tech companies are going to be hit in a big way because they depend on export. There's going to be public dissatisfaction. There's going to be increase in crime. And most importantly, there's going to be strain on innovation. The tariffs do not cooperate or encourage international research, science, or tech development. So I think overall, time is going to tell because it's so unpredictable. One day, US slaps tariffs. The next day, they halt it, right? So it's so unpredictable. It just looks like a movie scene. It's not something which is professional. Like you see the war between the US and China. China is one country which is standing its ground. We just hope other countries realize this and stand up to the pressure of United States.
Doctor, thank you for that fascinating coverage from India. Ayal Hartov is in Netanya in occupied Palestine. Ayal, what would you like to say?
Good evening, George, Mr. Galloway. I have a few questions for you about Gaza because you're so supportive of Gaza. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My first question is, Mr. Galloway, have you read the Quran? I would really like to know.
Why do you really want to know?
Because you're so supportive of Gaza and the Palestinians, and you keep calling Israel Palestine. I'd like to know what's your real opinion about the Quran.
What's that
I'd like
got
to
to
know
do with
what
the
you think
Quran?
about
The last time I was in
says,
Gaza, I was worshipping at the Church of the Holy Family, the one that the Pope calls every evening at 8 p.m., and the one that Israel has ruthlessly bombed, murdering 3 of the parishioners there. So don't get me started on holy books. Just say what it is you've come here to say.
Well, I think I'm not supportive of what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza, but you know who started it is the Palestinians and the Gazans, who had it pretty good there, although you call it an open concentration camp. I can show you pictures of how beautiful it was before October 7th, and then the Hamas decided just to take the initiative and destroy everything with invading houses and taking babies and beheading them and putting them in ovens. And I can show you the movie. I'm not afraid to show you the movie on this channel.
Now you're just lying, you see, and I didn't know that you'd come here from occupied Palestine to defend the apartheid state, and if I had, I wouldn't have agreed to speak to you because I don't debate with supporters of genocide who are literally sitting in the genocidal country itself. So I've turned my back upon you. The use of pictures to show me what Gaza looked like before October 7th shows such monumental ignorance. There can be few, if any, prominent people in the West have seen the reality of Gaza prior to October the 7th than me. I have broken the siege on Gaza time after time after time at the head of convoys full of food and medicine for a starving, emaciated, and sickened society. You want to show me pictures of what Gaza was like before October 7th? I've smelt it, seen it, been there over and over again. I've seen the killing fields of 2008, 2009. I have seen the massacres of 2014. And of course, I have no need of your Photoshop skills to show me about the suffering of the people of Gaza. In any case, your problem is that we've all seen just too many pictures from Gaza. We've all seen video and photographic evidence of actual beheaded children, of children scorched to death, not in an oven, but in a tent. 2,000-pound bombs, burning people alive, women and children alive in $20 tents. We have seen the pictures of the tens of miles of trucks full of rotting food and medicine rapidly going out of date that you have forbidden to come in to the occupied Gaza Strip. And we have seen and heard your own leaders making their genocidal promises to literally eradicate the Palestinian people from their land. Their land. Not Trump's land, definitely not your land, their land. And we know that you plan to do the same to the Christian people and the Muslim people in occupied East Jerusalem. We know that you intend to do the same thing to the Christian people and the Muslim people from Bethlehem, from Nablus, from Ramallah, and throughout the West Bank. We know you. We see you. We see through you. We have no need of your pictures. Be gone and don't come back. Rabia Billings in my own country of Scotland. She's up next. Rabia, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mr. Galloway, Comrade Galloway. I'm just going to respond quickly to the gentleman. I don't even usually respond to pro-genocidal supporters, but I do believe it's rich coming from a white supremacist to say that the lives of Palestinians were so hunky-dory before the genocide started. Palestine did not start, the issue in Palestine did not start on October the 7th. Apartheid existed before then. People, women, men, and children were raped by Israelis prior to that. They were killed prior to that. The period before October the 7th started, we know that that was the deadliest year for Palestinians. And I just find it rich that somebody that believes in an apartheid policy can come here and tell us when they are benefiting from apartheid, when they are benefiting from the genocide of Palestinians. I'm going to go to today's discussion, which is China. Lee mentioned America can just make their own money. Africa and the rest of the world has woken up to this facade of American money. In fact, one African politician called American money monopoly money, because Africa has resources and they realize that their resources, their mineral wealth and mineral riches are definitely worth more than the paper that is mass produced in America. So the question of de-dollarization, it's not the future, it is happening. Trump's erratic behavior and his erratic leadership that we are witnessing across the globe is actually pushing BRICS faster. You know, it's making it happen faster. And then I'd like to go back to the fact that America has only to blame the Democrats for Trump. right? Trump is in position because the Democrats failed the US by being the key party involved in the genocide in Palestine. People came to them and begged them to try to change their stance and begged them to try to stop the genocide. Imagine how desperate people were. A lot of people didn't even vote. And that is why America is in the state it is. They actually voted in somebody who is a convicted felon with 32 counts against him. So Trump is a product of the Democratic Party's failure to American people.
Very beautifully expressed and powerfully. Also, thank you, Rabia, for each part of your contribution. I don't have time to deal with them all, but let me deal with the third, the last. The responsibility for Trump is the morbidity, the malignancy of the American political system. So desperate were the mass of the American people for some kind of change, something different from the long era, from Clinton through Obama, through Biden, and undoubtedly would have continued under Harris. So desperate were the American people. They were prepared to take a chance on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a symptom of the despair of the American people at decade after decade of misgovernance, mismanagement, endless war, and inequality in their own country. You made that point beautifully, and I'm grateful for you giving me the chance to underscore it. Let's go to London, where Charles Kelly has a point of view on the tariffs. Charles, what would you like to say?
Good afternoon, everyone, George and everybody. Yeah, obviously, like everyone else, I've been following what's been going on with the tariffs and this trade war that we seem to be getting into. And the fact that Donald Trump said that America has been raped and pillaged, not the exact words, by all these other countries, forgetting that the Americans have had a grip on the world economy through Bretton Woods Agreement, the dollar becoming the world reserve currency, and also the petrodollar. But I think now we're seeing with the BRICS countries trading with each other and having a system to trade outside of SWIFT, I think things are about to change in that respect. But I just wonder what you felt about the general rhetoric that they were being played unfairly by all these countries and saying, oh, the European Union have been very bad to us, and this country's been really bad to us, and they're not nice people. Some of it made me laugh, actually, but
it's quite comical.
Let's see what happens. I mean, China's now in a tit for tat.
Yeah, my national poet, Robert Burns, had a couplet: the greatest gift that God could give us, to see ourselves as others see us. And never was that more obvious than in the cri de coeur from Donald Trump as to how America has been so put upon by the rest of the world that they in fact have completely, ruthlessly dominated and exploited throughout most of the decades since the end of the Second World War. They see themselves, or Trump at least sees themselves, as the victim of its victims, while the victims increasingly see themselves as the victims of the United States of America. And it is, as Rabia said, as you have said, pushing the BRICS and other alternative formulae faster down the road. I mean, I thought, for example, and I was at Kazan last year for the BRICS summit, I thought that the alternative payment system, an alternative to SWIFT, was dead. Was completely unremarked in the final communique, just like the alternative currency, BRICS currency, and so on. And I was quite melancholy at the fact that They seem to have missed their opportunity to build their own alternative to SWIFT. But lo and behold, in the wake of Trump's erratic, bizarre, unhinged behavior, Putin himself has resurrected the idea of a new SWIFT system, of a new alternative payments system, without which you really can't do much, you know. If you leave the American-dominated, controlled banking system in charge of all of our trade, we are entirely at the mercy of the decisions, capricious, weird decision-making under the Donald Trump presidency. So it's actually a matter of the gravest urgency, not just to, and you're right, both of you were right, and our guest from India was right, people are trading with each other in their own domestic currencies. Russia has now got a big mountain of rupees. Not sure yet they've worked out what to do with them, but they've got them. And that, of course, is to be encouraged. The more trade in local currencies, the better. But the ultimate would be if all those in the BRICS, who are the majority of the population of the earth, who are the holders of the most of the wealth of the world, if they could cut out the dollar completely through an alternative to the SWIFT system to settle debts between them, then the US reserve currency would be, as Rabia said, just monopoly money, scarcely worth even the paper that it was printed on. Let's go up to the northeast of England, to Gateshead, where a good friend of the show, Fadi Ekder, is on the line. Fadi, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Galloway. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure always to be here. Sorry about this, it's the phone. Okay. Before we go into that, I just want to say a few words to our friend that came from Netanya. I would send him photos of Palestine before Israel existed. So to see how beautiful it was, to see the, well, my uncle in Germany still has the key, so I won't, because he's the eldest. So there are lots of beautiful photos, advancements. It was a civilized nation before they came, so that's it. In contrast to, well, the war we're having, it is still the same war as, in my opinion, still the same war as the war we have been having for the past 3 years. Now that tit for tat has been more direct. I mean, Blinken, Secretary of State, he went to China, and the words he said were worse than what we're hearing today. Trump has done that. He's going to keep on doing that because this is going to be difficult for everybody. We're going to go into England has to go with Brexit. I've said that 10 years ago, since the referendum. We have to build everything here, just work on everything here, get our skills up, and that's how we're doing it. Not just England or any other country. I'm living here. I love it here, so I'm working on here. And,
well, I'm totally in agreement with that, brother. We speak in the wake of the near unbelievable cataclysm of the last vestiges of steelmaking in Britain collapsing and going out of business. Imagine the country which launched the Industrial Revolution being the country that lost even its remaining steel industry. It's almost impossible to imagine. And it hasn't even been saved yet, although the blow to national prestige forced the MPs to get out their bed and go to work on a Saturday. The road which led to the deindustrialization of Britain and of the United States. You see, Trump is onto something. It was American capitalists that moved all their plant machinery and manufactures to China. It wasn't the Chinese that came in and stole it. The Chinese did not ask for it. The American capitalists moved there for their own selfish reasons. And they did deindustrialize the United States, which in 1945 had been a mighty industrial manufacturing economy. And Trump, if he wants to bring that back to America, he has my full support, because I want to bring it back to Britain also. Let me go to Soweto, South Africa, Bokang Selamakoro. Bokang, welcome.
Hello, Coach Galloway. How are you doing? I wanted to ask, this the last years and times for the empire, is it collapsing with the United States on the brink and is trying to hold on to power by changing the market and everything that they are doing?
Well, Bokang, I'm one of these. I'm not. I'm kind of unique in this studio because, as you can see from the title of this show tonight, there are people who believe that the empire is in its coffin and only requires a few more nails. There are people who believed back in the 1960s, Chairman Mao said that the American empire was a paper tiger. Well, it wasn't a paper tiger in the 1960s, and it isn't a paper tiger now. It's a real tiger. It's older, it's flabbier, and its presidential representation shows it, but it's still a tiger. It has a lot of teeth have fallen out, but it still has teeth. It still has claws, and it is still capable of doing enormous damage in the world and indeed to its own people. So I don't believe the US is a paper tiger. I don't believe it's in its coffin. I don't believe that the US empire will be gone in my lifetime, but I do believe it will be gone in your lifetime. I do believe that we are living on the cusp of a major shift in world affairs, in the balance of power and wealth. I do believe that the tectonic plates have shifted and they will not shift back. I just warn people always of apocalyptic language and apocalyptic thinking, because it can lead to tremendous disappointment, and with disappointment comes demobilization. Lovely to talk to Soweto again, I must say. Let me go to Scott Solomon, who is in New York City. Scott, what would you like to say, my friend?
Hey, George.
Hi.
I'm going to throw a date out to you. August 19th, 2024. President Putin signed a decree that any Western citizen who is fed up with neoliberal ideology can emigrate to Moscow or any other city in the Russian Federation. And parliamentarian of the State Duma in Moscow, Maria Butina, has set up an organization. You can message her on X and say, I want to move to Russia. So what I'm saying, and you can live wonderfully in Moscow for 1,700,000 rubles a year. That's only like $17,000 a year. So that's well within probably the retirement income of any older American on Social Security, or probably any older citizen of the European Union or the UK. And you don't have to wake up every morning under a government that's setting women and children on fire, blowing them apart, provoking war with Iran. I mean, you can escape the insanity by just simply sending a message to Maria Butina on X. And that's what I have done. And I expect in the next 4 weeks, I'll be living in Moscow.
Wow, well, I hope you'll still call the show. You're right, there are many people who prefer the family values, the God-fearing nature of Russian society over the rotten, degenerate societies we have managed to produce in the West. I myself will be in Moscow, God willing, for the victory celebration on the 9th of May, along with my good wife. And I'll also be in St. Petersburg in June for the economic forum there. So I love Russia. I'm not in second place to anyone in loving Russia, but I don't want to be a Russian, and I don't want to live there. I want to live and die in my own country, fighting with my boots on to make my own country better than it currently is. But the best of luck to you. I can well understand the attraction of Moscow over New York City. Abdil Jalil Khan Rao in India is, I think, our last caller. And let's hear from him. Go ahead, sir.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Galloway. Good to be invited here again. I have a point of view here, which I have been thinking for quite a while, and I think so about it even more so now than before, is that the USA is kind of facing its Suez Canal crisis moment, like the UK right now, considering what's happening under the Trump administration. Now, why do I think so? Is that, well, their military intervention in Afghanistan has been quite a failure. 2 decades worth of money, material, manpower just flushed down the drain like it was expendable, like it was nothing. Their military intervention in Ukraine has been quite a failure, so as to speak. At best, they have been able to just stall the war, if they have been able to. Now, it's 0 for 2 for them. So, and right now, Trump has been trying to put on these tariffs and everything, and trying to shift from the military war into a rather trade war with China. Now, anybody who has been in the driving seat for so long wouldn't want to be told to get into the passenger seat, let alone at the back
that's a
seat
fact.
of the car.
We don't have time to develop it further, but you raised some very important issues. Is this a Suez moment for the United States? Well, they haven't won a war since 1945, and even then it wasn't really them that won it. They have been involved and involved their people in a series of disastrous wars ever since, and they have declined and declined and declined as an empire with each succeeding war. The Afghan war was an abject humiliation for them, and they sought to trampoline out of the humiliation into a victory in the Ukraine, which, as you say, has also been an abject failure. There's no reason to believe that their fortunes are going to be any better should they launch a war against Iran, God forbid, and it's looking less likely that they are in any case thinking of doing that. So a Suez moment where they lost their confidence in their belief that they were going to remain as the top dogs, I think you're onto something there. We'll discuss it, no doubt, again on next week's show, Have It Out with Galloway. Thanks very much for joining us.